Habari Entertainment proudly presents Habari Live. Habari Live. From Phoenix, Arizona. And you're listening to the Habari Live podcast. The show that brings you news, sports, and entertainment for people who love HabariEntertainment.com. Here are your hosts, Iesha, Jimmy, and Damon Dipleen Ellison. Let's get it going. We are all the way live.
Hello. Welcome to another interview with Habari Interviews, and we're talking with Jim Beach. He is the author of The Real Environmentalist, How Wayne Elliott and Other Capitalists Will Save the World. So we're going to talk to Jim a little bit about his book and what inspired him to write it. How you doing today, Jim?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time. So first off, let's get straight to it. How was your day going out there? Where are you located?
I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta, Georgia. There we go. That's the city there.
The one place hotter than Phoenix.
Right. Well, you guys have a lot of humidity down there too. We don't really.
We do
that. But so talk to us a little bit about what your inspiration was to write the book, and your focus on entrepreneurs like Wayne Elliott rather than traditional environmental activists.
Well, I met Wayne and thought that his life deserved a book, and so I was talking to Wayne about writing a book about him. Okay. He started off as a ship recycler. He would go and buy a 1,000-foot aircraft carrier and recycle it down to all of its basic parts, nothing bigger than 2 feet square, and made a living doing that. That's a hard living. But along the way, oh, by the way, he was also drafted by the Mets and by a football team, but stayed working, and along the way had a problem with batteries. And so he spent $20 million of his own dollars and invented battery recycling and got Canada up to 97% battery recycling. Here in the United States, we're still at 0%. And I started talking to Wayne, and he agreed to be the subject of the book. But I kept finding more and more people like him, incredible entrepreneurs solving the problems that are supposedly going to kill our planet and make all of our lives miserable from these ecological disasters and these environmental disasters. And every time I found a solution that was happening, it was being run by an entrepreneur, not by a government, not by an academic, not by a celebrity. It was being run by an entrepreneur doing a for-profit solution. And so we actually came up with 216 entrepreneurs that are already solving the horrible environmental problems that we keep hearing about. And every sector, we have someone solving that problem. One of the people we talk about in the book is a guy named Gator Halpern. And he has figured out how to grow coral, like ocean reefs, 50 times faster than God can. So he can go to the Great Barrier Reef and then drop in more coral to replace what has been damaged. Or he can go to a resort, their beach, and put a reef out there for the beach goers to enjoy. Yeah. But that's an amazing solution. Right. We don't hear about that. It's not in the news all the time. When we hear about the environment, we only hear that it's going to kill us all and that it's all doom and gloom. I found some great stories where it's good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what it's about. And I can say, a lot of companies have been a big part of the environmental issues that we've had. So it's good to see that companies are doing something about some of the issues that they did cause, with some of these problems that we're seeing in the environment, with some of the manufacturing and some of the other things that has happened to the environment, deforestation and other things that have caused big problems for us. So I'm happy to see that those things are being fixed by some of the people who may have caused those things. Hold on one second. Go to widescreen. Why not? We should have started in that. Don't worry about it. All right. So number 2, we'll cut that out. You argue that capitalism can be a powerful force for saving the planet. What convinced you that nonprofit driven innovation could succeed where regulation and activism have struggled?
Well, they're the people actually solving the problems now. I don't see any government-led solutions solving the microplastic in the Pacific Ocean problem, but I do find a for-profit company. I don't find anyone out there tackling battery recycling except for the nonprofit. So you just don't see the government doing any solutions. They give us more rules, make more environment or regulations, and make it stricter to develop, but
Mhm.
at the same time, they're cutting off the possibility for some of the great solutions that are out there. And so it's just a matter of who's playing the game. The government's not playing the game. The activists aren't playing the game. The scientists aren't doing anything. The only ones that are the environmental entrepreneurs that have set themselves apart. I love them because they're not out there trying to get an award from the UN. They're
Mm.
trying to raise more money or get a new contract for a new area to work on. And so they have their focus in the right place with actually solving problems.
Yeah, that's definitely something that's important. Um, so third, I wanted to ask a little bit about Wayne Elliott. Wayne Elliott's work is central to your book. What makes him and his approach stand out as an example for all other real environmentalists?
Well, he was making environmental decisions for his companies decades before it became popular. So he
Uh,
went out and got the ISO certification when there was no reason for him to. There wasn't a regulation that forced him to do it. He went out and did it because he wanted to be better and take better care of the environment. And he found that he got an amazing response from that and was able to charge more for a ship that people would pay a little bit extra to have that certification associated with him and with their projects. And so he's led his entire life dedicated to the environment with the ISO. And then he's the guy that invented the battery recycling.
mm,
It blows my mind that in Canada you can walk into any grocery store or a Home Depot or a place like that, and there's a big box to throw your batteries in. And we don't have
mhm.
anything similar to that in the United States. Nothing at all that's like a national effort to have battery recycling occur. And so he's led significant environmental issues his entire life and did it before it was, sexy and before people were out there winning awards like Leonardo DiCaprio. He was
Mhm.
just out there doing it and not telling anyone, just out there saving the environment, and didn't have a publicist, didn't have anyone to brag to, just did it for the
Yeah,
good of the environment. That's the old timey way of just doing
right.
things in the right that no one can see you do it.
And that's what I think is important. I think also him probably being Canadian gives him a different perspective because it seems like they have a different perspective when it comes to environmental issues than we do in America. It seems like it's more of a fight about restrictions and things like that here. Instead of us trying to move forward with the things that are important, we're always fighting and scrambling back and forth about how to get things done, and then nothing gets done in the long run. So, how do you what do you think about people and many people and what they say about capitalism as the problem, and it can't be a solution when it comes to climate change? How do you respond to that kind of criticism?
Well, I just see the opposite, and I can only point to the 200 businesses here in America that are operating right now for profit and solving an environmental problem. And
Mhm.
so I invite you to show me 10 on a different model. I can show you 200 following the entrepreneurial model, and I don't think that there's that many on any other model, the government led model, a scientist led, the celebrity led model. We need the environmental entrepreneur to actually make these things happen and get done. The government can't afford to solve the problem again and again and again and again. The only way you can have something that iterates again and again and again is it's for profit, because then you want to do it again and again and again. Otherwise, if you have to keep going and begging for money for each time, Give
Right.
me, $1 million and I'll clean up another part of Texas. No, that's not, it's not going to happen that way because you're always begging for money.
Hmm.
Whereas my entrepreneurs are always going to the bank with their profit every week.
Right.
So that becomes a habit really quickly.
I mean, I can definitely see the good in that, and definitely because I see that entrepreneurs, they push innovation, and they push the um the boundaries when it comes to how to make money and different things on when how to innovate and create new products. But I also can see that if these plans to clean up things aren't making them any money, or if it's not making their donors happy, then they can make changes and do things that may hurt the environment because they're worried about profit and they're worried about money. Do you think that could be something that could be a problem also when you have these companies that's thinking about their bottom lines when we're always also trying to clean up their environment?
Well, for decades, we've had companies just dumping their waste in the local river.
Right.
And, almost every river in the United States, Flint, Michigan, for example, the water is horrible. You can't drink it in so many places.
Hmm.
And I think there's some amazing companies right now. There's one called Vater, VVATER,
Okay.
that is out of Austin, Texas. They're doing amazing things with cleaning water and having the water that's very polluted come out at the other end clean, and doing it for much, much less. The
Mhm.
biggest problem, though, right now is that we have companies like OpenAI that run the Chat GPT.
Yeah.
Their data center uses more water
Water.
than the state of Texas
Yep.
does, just for the data center for one AI. And
Mhm.
so we have a problem with keeping up with the demand that technology is going to impose. Technology is going to demand greater water supply and more energy, and they have the money to make it happen. There's a story that Google's going to build their own nuclear power plant for supplying their data
Wow.
needs. And we have to think, though, that Google's going to do it better
Hmm.
than some unnamed company 40 years ago with no regulation. At least I think that the regulations now are strong enough, and these companies care about their environmental impact, that
Hmm.
we'll get better performance out of this generation of companies. Let's hope for that.
Yeah, I agree. The race for power is going to be a big deal in the future, and the water, the type of water that they need to keep their servers clean and keep their
Mhm.
servers cool is going to be a big problem, man. And they're going to have to figure out a different way. This is not going to work. It's not viable for the environment and for the state of Texas or any other place, because Arizona have a lot of companies love to come here also for their data centers and things like that. So it's going to be tough on Arizona, who we already don't have any water here in Arizona.
That's right.
So to bring in all these companies that they're doing is going to be a big impact on what we do have, the little sources that we do have. Now we've been talking about building a water plant on the Gulf to be able to salinate some of the water, for we can figure out different options, but that's going to be millions and millions of dollars and years down the road before that isn't even thought of. So, do you believe the real environmentalists you describe represent a movement that can scale globally, or are they isolated success stories?
No, they're going to scale globally. They already are. There are companies all over the world solving different parts of the
Mhm.
problem and attacking it from different sides. So I think that this is a global movement that will last, because if one little part of it fails, that doesn't really affect the greater movement. That part that goes out of business will just drift to the side, and
Yeah.
the greater mass will continue to proceed. And none of it's relying on help from anybody. It's only customers who are willing to pay.
Mm.
Those customers who gladly give you their money because you solve their problems, then they're going to go and tell their friends and the other managers in the sector. And I think that we're at the tip of the iceberg for a solution that's going to solve the problem. So many of the problems have already been solved. They keep talking about Manhattan disappearing under water, and that the oceans are going to flood Miami and stuff. The entire country of the Netherlands has been a meter, 3 feet underwater for 300 years.
Wow.
And they're doing just fine there. Their entire country is a meter underwater, below sea level. And they figured out, centuries ago how to solve that problem.
Wow.
We're just not paying attention to the fact that a lot of the problems are solved.
I mean, we know that New Orleans, they have the same
That's right.
type of engineering going there, because they are also under sea level. So they have figured out how to engineer. We've run into a couple problems over the decades, but they've definitely figured out how to fix some of those problems. So what do you think about things like the Paris Accords and different legislations that are passed worldwide between different countries? Do you think that those regulations help to spine more businesses, or do you think that hurts the outcome of these companies trying to solve some of these problems?
Well, yeah, that's a really great question. The problem is China, that they don't abide by any of the regulations or the rules that they sign up to. And so they will sign a treaty and then start ignoring it immediately. They're still building coal power plants there on a weekly basis, a new one every week. And so they're not participating. They're not playing by the rules that they say that we have to participate by. And of course, the reason is because they're still a developing country. They say but then they're still putting, spaceship on the moon at the same time. And so it's a very hard situation that the United States finds itself in. We have been abiding by many of the regulations of the Paris Accord, even if we didn't, one president gets rid of it and the next president brings it back and all of this silliness. American companies are doing a great job of getting better. We have made strides here in the United States. The problem is that it's a global problem. And so what we do here affects them, and what they do affects us. A lot of the issues can be solved locally. Our beaches can be nicer than the other beaches around the world. And we can have better seafood off of our shores that are cleaner. But some of the problems are global. The big blob of microplastics that's floating around in the Pacific Ocean that's the size of Texas is mostly from Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines, those countries that are doing a lot of fishing. And what do you do when your fishing net is torn? You throw it overboard and let it sink, and it becomes part of the blob. And so those are really hard issues to solve. How do we solve an issue in Vietnam? How do we impose a rule that's going to be listened to in Vietnam? That's just not a realistic solution. And so America, we have to have a global mindset to solve everyone's environmental problem.
And it's tough. And we all know that the impact are on the poorer countries. They see more of an impact on some of these environmental issues that we are starting to see as a world, and they are the first ones that are impacted by these things. But we also have to set the foundation for everyone else to see, hey, this is what you can do, so they can start following the expectations that we set for it. And hopefully that's a way for everyone to globally start getting things together. But lastly, 10 years from now, what's the vision? How do you see capitalism reshaping environmentalism? And will it be enough to slow down climate change?
My dream for 10 years from now is that instead of having famous celebrities or Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, that we have a new generation of famous environmental entrepreneurs that are billionaires. That guy solved that problem. That's the guy that figured out how to clean the air. That's the guy that figured out how to clean up microplastics. That's the guy that figured out how to turn algae into petroleum alternative products, and have them be the superstars of the next generation. That's the coolest thing that we could dream of.
For sure. I really appreciate you, Jim. Anything else that you want to tell us about the book, where you can purchase it?
Go to Amazon like everyone else. Look for me, Jim Beach, or Real Environmentalist. And we have a website too, realenvironmentalist.com, where we have some extra features and bonus material and stuff like that.
All right, Jim. We really appreciate your time. And like I
Thank
said,
you.
we'll get this up as soon as it's possible. We appreciate you, and you have a great rest of your day.
You too.
And,
Thank you so
thanks
much.
for talking to
I'll
us.
retweet and repost. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Have a good one.
Thanks for watching another episode of Habari Live. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and get updates on news, the podcast, and more. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And don't forget to visit www.habarientertainment.com. See you next week. Peace.